a modern cinematic audiobook inspired by Fourth Wing. INTRO, when fear becomes the gateway. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. Below you, clouds swirl like living things. Behind you, everything familiar. Everything safe. And ahead? A sky so vast it feels like it could swallow you whole. This is the moment that changes everything. You know what's interesting about dragons? They've lived in our stories for thousands of years. Not because they're real, but because they represent something we all face. That terrifying, beautiful moment when we must choose between who we were and who we're about to become. I want to tell you about transformation. Real transformation. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that throws you into the fire and demands you either burn or become something stronger than you ever imagined. This isn't a story about fantasy creatures. This is about you. About that voice inside that whispers you're not ready. That says you're too small, too weak, too broken. And what happens when you step forward anyway? Over the next hour, we're going to explore something powerful. How ordinary people discover extraordinary strength. How fragility becomes your greatest weapon. How the very things trying to destroy you can become the wings that lift you higher than you ever dreamed. Because here's the truth most people never learn: your weaknesses? They're not flaws in your design. They're features. The cracks are where the light gets in. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to embrace the fall. Let's begin. Section 1. The Weight of Expectations. Have you ever felt like your entire life was written by someone else? Picture a child standing in a library. Her mother, a legendary warrior, casts a shadow so long that even sunlight struggles to reach her daughter's face. Every book on those shelves tells stories of heroes. Strong heroes. Brave heroes. Heroes who never questioned whether they belong. This child? She's fragile. Her body breaks easily. Her bones betray her. And everyone knows it. Here's what psychology teaches us about expectation. When the world decides who you are before you've even spoken, something powerful happens in your brain. Scientists call it identity foreclosure. Your sense of self becomes frozen. Not by choice. By consensus. The people around you build a cage out of their beliefs. And you? You live inside it, thinking it's the world. But here's the secret. The moment you stop arguing with their expectations and start walking toward your own truth, that cage disappears. Because it was never real. It was always made of fear. Theirs. Yours. It doesn't matter. What matters is the first step beyond it. Section 2. When safety becomes a prison. There's a dangerous word we don't talk about enough: safety. Imagine two paths. One leads through familiar gardens. Smooth stones. Known dangers. The other? It rises vertical into storm clouds. It promises nothing but pain and impossibility. Which do you choose? Most people choose the garden. And they die there. Not physically. Spiritually. They die the slow death of unlived potential. Here's what neuroscience reveals. Your brain has one primary job. Keep you alive. Not happy. Not fulfilled. Just alive. So it screams at you whenever you approach an edge. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline, making every new challenge feel like death itself. This is called the negativity bias. Your brain is literally wired to keep you small. But transformation? It only happens at edges. At thresholds. At those terrifying moments when you step beyond everything your nervous system is begging you to avoid. The warrior's path isn't chosen because it's safe. It's chosen because living in the garden means never discovering what you're truly made of. Section 3. The Brotherhood of Broken Things. Here's something beautiful about struggle. It shows you who's real. Imagine entering a place where everyone is fighting for survival. Where weakness means death. Where every person around you could be your killer or your savior. You can't tell which. In these crucibles, something magic happens. The people who were also told they don't belong, you find each other. Like magnets. Like stars recognizing their own light in an endless dark. Social psychology calls this In group formation under threat. When external pressure is enormous, tribal bonds form fast and deep. Your survival brain starts recognizing allies not by strength, but by shared struggle. The strongest friendships aren't built in comfort. They're forged in fire. Think about your own life. Who are the people you trust with everything? Chances are, they're not the ones who only knew you when things were easy. They're the ones who saw you breaking and chose to break alongside you. This is the brotherhood of broken things. And it's stronger than steel. Section 4, The Dragon Test. Let's talk about worthiness. There's a moment in every transformation where you face a test so impossible, so utterly beyond your capacity, that even attempting it feels like madness. Imagine creatures of pure power. Ancient. Intelligent. Beings who can see through your skin into the trembling core of who you are. They don't want your strength. They want your truth. Can you be chosen when you don't choose yourself? Here's what behavioral science teaches about self-efficacy. Your belief in your own capability is more important than your actual skill. It's not talent that determines success. It's your willingness to act despite uncertainty. But here's the paradox. Sometimes you can't believe in yourself first. Sometimes you must act first. And belief follows. The dragon doesn't choose the strongest candidate. It chooses the one whose heart matches its own fire. The one brave enough to stand before something vast and impossible and whisper, "I'm here anyway." That's not confidence. That's something deeper. That's commitment to becoming, even when becoming might destroy you. Section 5, When your body betrays you. Pain is a strange teacher. Imagine living in a body that fights against itself. Where every push forward costs you bone and blood. Where your own skeleton becomes your enemy. Most people would stop. They'd call it wisdom. Self-care. Knowing your limits. But what if your limits are lies? Medical research on chronic pain reveals something profound. Our relationship with suffering determines how much it controls us. Two people with identical injuries can have completely different lives. One becomes their pain. The other learns to carry it like a scar, proof they survived something terrible and kept walking. This is called pain reappraisal. It's not about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let it define your capacity for greatness. When your body betrays you, you have two choices. Surrender to it. Or discover that you are not your body. You are the force that refuses to let flesh and bone make your decisions. Your fragility isn't a weakness. It's the weight you're training with. And every step you take while carrying it? That's building something unbreakable inside. Section 6, The Power of Calculated Risk. Here's a truth that changes everything. Recklessness and courage look identical from the outside. The difference? Strategy. Imagine standing at the base of impossible odds. Everyone expects you to charge forward mindlessly. To prove yourself through brute force. But you? You watch. You wait. You calculate. Intelligence isn't the opposite of bravery. It's the foundation of it. Cognitive psychology identifies something called strategic risk assessment. High performers don't take fewer risks than average people. They take smarter ones. They gather information. They study patterns. They find the invisible angles everyone else misses. This is how small people defeat giants. Not through strength. Through precision. When you can't overpower the obstacle, you must outthink it. Every limitation becomes a lens, forcing you to see details others ignore. Your weakness demands creativity. And creativity? That's the most dangerous weapon of all. Let's move deeper into something powerful. Section 7, When Mentors Become Mirrors. There's a special kind of person who changes your life without permission. Imagine someone who sees you, truly sees you, and doesn't flinch. They don't offer comfort. They offer challenge. They don't lower the bar. They show you how high you can actually reach. This is the mentor who doesn't teach by instruction. They teach by reflection. Developmental psychology calls this scaffolding. The mentor doesn't carry you. They build temporary structures around you, just enough support to attempt the impossible. Then they remove one piece at a time, until you discover you're standing alone. You were strong enough all along. But here's the deeper magic. Real mentors show you parts of yourself you couldn't see. They hold up a mirror that reflects not who you are, but who you're becoming. And that reflection? It's terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. When someone believes in you before you believe in yourself, they're not being kind. They're being honest. They're seeing the future you, standing in front of the present you, waiting for you to close the distance. Section 8. The Alchemy of Forced Evolution. Pressure doesn't break you. It reveals what you're made of. Think about diamonds. They're just carbon. Common. Unremarkable. But compress that carbon under impossible pressure for millions of years? It becomes the hardest substance on Earth. Light itself bends when passing through it. You are carbon under pressure. Neuroplasticity research shows something miraculous. Your brain physically changes in response to challenge. New neural pathways form. Old limitations dissolve. The impossible becomes merely difficult. The difficult becomes routine. But here's the catch. This only happens at the edge of your capacity. Comfort produces nothing. Mild challenge produces incremental growth. But when you're pushed so far beyond your limits that survival itself is questionable, that's when transformation happens at the cellular level. Every time you face something that should break you and you don't break, your brain rewires. Your identity shifts. You become living proof that the old you no longer exists. This is forced evolution. And it's the only way butterflies leave cocoons. Section 9. The betrayal that sets you free. Not every enemy stands in front of you. Imagine trusting someone completely, building your sense of safety on the foundation of their loyalty, and then discovering it was performance, strategy, manipulation. Most people call this heartbreak. But what if it's actually awakening? Betrayal does something unique to the human psyche. It forces radical honesty. All your assumptions about who's safe and who's dangerous? Shattered. And in that shattering, you stop being naive. You start being wise. Psychological research on trust violations shows that people who've been betrayed and worked through it develop something called calibrated trust. They don't close their hearts. They sharpen their perception. They learn to read microsignals, to trust their instincts, to see beneath surface presentations. The person who betrayed you thought they were defeating you. They didn't realize they were training you. You emerge from betrayal like steel from the forge. Harder. Clearer. Impossible to fool twice. And here's the beautiful part. You don't become cynical. You become discerning. And that's a superpower. Section 10. Flight is earned, not given. Let me tell you about wings. People think flight is about freedom. It's not. It's about partnership. It's about two beings, each incomplete alone, becoming something magnificent together. Imagine forming a bond so deep that thought becomes shared, where your survival is intertwined with another's completely, where trust isn't optional. It's absolute. This is what psychologists call secure attachment at the existential level. In human relationships, we struggle with this. We want intimacy without vulnerability, connection without risk. But true bonding? It requires you to show every weak place, every scar, every secret fear. And when you find the one who looks at all of it and doesn't leave, when you find the connection that says, "Your survival is my survival," that's when you stop walking. That's when you fly. But here's the paradox. You can't earn this bond by being perfect. You earn it by being honest, by showing up broken and brave, by proving that even when you're terrified, you won't abandon the partnership. Wings aren't given to the flawless. They're given to the faithful. Section 11. The weight of secrets. Truth is heavy. Imagine carrying knowledge that could destroy everything you're building. Information that makes you dangerous to the very people you're trying to protect. A secret so massive that even speaking it aloud could cost you everything. This is the burden of awareness. Cognitive dissonance theory explains what happens when what you know conflicts with what you're supposed to do. Your brain experiences actual physical stress. The gap between truth and action creates psychological pain as real as any wound. Most people resolve this by choosing ignorance, by not looking too closely, by accepting comfortable lies. But once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. And every moment you stay silent becomes a choice, a calculation, a sacrifice of integrity for strategy. This is the warrior's loneliness. Fighting for people who don't know what you're fighting against. Protecting a system you know is broken. Choosing the lesser evil while dreaming of a better world. The weight of secrets doesn't make you a liar. It makes you a guardian of dangerous knowledge, waiting for the moment when speaking becomes more important than surviving. Section 12. When love complicates everything. Here's something they don't tell you about falling. Sometimes you fall toward danger and salvation at the same time. Imagine being drawn to someone who represents everything you should avoid. Who could destroy you with a word. Whose allegiance is questionable. Whose motives are unclear. And choosing to trust them anyway. Attachment theory describes something called anxious avoidant bonding. It's when two people who are both afraid of intimacy somehow create a connection so intense it overrides every defense mechanism they've built. It's not healthy. It's not safe. But it's transformative. Because when you love someone despite knowing they could hurt you, you're making the ultimate bet on human connection. You're saying, I believe in what we could be more than I fear what we might become. This isn't romance. This is alchemy. Taking two broken things and forging them into something neither could be alone. Does it always work? No. Is it always wise? Absolutely not. But sometimes the greatest strength comes from admitting you can't do it alone. From letting someone see you completely. From building trust one terrifying choice at a time. Section 13. The final test. Every transformation has a threshold moment. Everything you've survived. Every lesson you've learned. Every scar you've earned. It all comes down to one impossible challenge. One test where failure doesn't mean going home. It means you don't go anywhere ever again. This is the crucible. Performance psychology identifies something called clutch performance under pressure. It's not about being unafraid. Fear is present. Overwhelming. But somehow you access a state where fear becomes fuel instead of paralysis. Athletes call it the zone. Warriors call it battle clarity. It's the moment when all the preparation, all the pain, all the growth crystallizes into pure action. You stop thinking. You stop doubting. You become the thing you've been training to be. But here's what nobody tells you. You can't plan for this moment. You can't predict how you'll respond. You only discover what you're capable of when absolutely everything depends on it. The final test doesn't measure your skill. It measures your willingness to sacrifice everything for what matters most. And when you pass through fire and come out the other side, you're not the same person who entered. You're the phoenix. And you're just beginning to understand what your wings can do. Ending the dragon within. So here we are. At the end of one journey and the beginning of another. I want you to remember something important. This story? It was never about dragons. It was always about you. About standing at the edge of your own transformation and choosing to jump. About discovering that your fragility was never weakness. It was preparation. Every crack, every break, every moment you thought you couldn't continue? That was your becoming. You know what's beautiful about wings? They're not given to people who are always strong. They're earned by people who kept showing up even when their bones were breaking. By people who looked at impossible odds and said, "Watch me anyway." There's a version of you that exists beyond every limit you've accepted. A version that doesn't ask permission. That doesn't wait for perfect conditions. That steps into the storm and discovers it was born to fly. That version isn't coming someday. It's standing behind your current self right now, waiting for you to close the distance. Every dragon you face in your life, every impossible challenge, every moment where you think you're not enough, those aren't obstacles. They're invitations. They're the universe asking, are you ready to discover what you're actually made of? And the answer? The answer is already inside you. It always has been. You just needed a reason to let it out. So here's my question for you: what edge are you standing at right now? What impossible thing is calling your name? What dragon is waiting to see if you're brave enough to meet its eyes? Because somewhere in the clouds above you, your wings are waiting. They always have been. Not the kind that lift you above struggle. The kind that let you fly through it. Transform because of it. Become impossible to break because you've already been shattered and put yourself back together stronger than before. The sky is calling. Are you listening? The ending is just another beginning. And this time? This time you know you can fly.